and that was £6, 10 shillings a week.
Wow.
And the other job I got offered was second comic on the pier at Skegness for £18 a week. So it was a financial decision. And I did a 20-week summer season, as you did in those days, twice nightly on the end of the pier at Skegness, and really, I mean, that was a great training ground. I learned a tremendous amount then.
Yeah. Did you ever, at that time, did you go on stage and sort of collapse and, you know, corpse, as they say, or were things developing quite nicely?
I've always been a bit of a corpser. I think this happens. I don't think there's a lot you can do about it. I'll corpse even now, you know. No, I mean, I don't think things went wrong, and I wasn't one of those people who got terribly nervous before I went on stage. I don't think I could have coped. I think I'd have given it up if I'd have been like that.
Yeah.
Too much of a strain, and so I was always up for it, and always up for the challenge and to try something new, you know. And that's what you've got to do when you start as a comedian. You start out as a comedian. You've got to try new things all the while. The other thing you've got to do is you've got to develop a style that's different from anybody else. And of course, when you start, I mean, I was Ken Dodd one week, I was Bob Monkhouse the week after, I was Bruce Forsyth, I was Tommy Cooper occasionally, you know what I mean, without the magic. And you just go through all of this, and eventually, I reckon it took me about 5 or 6 years to actually develop a style that was my own.
Right. What would you say that style is? I mean, I think you used to sing as well as a comedian. Did you do that?
Yeah, I did quite a bit of singing. I do now, but that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a singer, you know. But the style, I mean, I've had various write-ups in various times that have described my style quite well. One said, a young man comes on stage and machine guns the audience with gags, and I thought that was a good description. And another said that Don McClean stands on stage as though leaning forward, as though he's ready to pounce on the audience at any minute. And I suppose I've been described as an aggressive comedian. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to be unpleasant, but it's quick fire patter comedy. And the important thing, if you're going to do that, is you've got to be very, very articulate when you speak.
Yes.
You know, you mustn't run.
Yeah.
You know, it's no good being like Jimmy Cricket when nobody knows what's going on. You know, so it is.
That's why they laugh, is it? They don't know what's going on, so they laugh anyway.
It's great working with Jimmy Cricket because he is completely different from me, you know. Yeah. He does all these silly gags and all this visual stuff, and I'm the quick patter, so there's no clash.
As you were developing in the business, what was your faith? Did it get shaken? I mean, many people that go into it just don't know how they can continue their faith in such a realm. Was that for you, or has that continued, that your faith in the Lord, has that continued all the way through?
Well, my mother said to me when I went off into the wide, wide world, she said, well, make sure you go to church every Sunday. And as a kid, when we went anywhere, you know, if we went on holiday or anything, the first thing we did, we arrived, and the first thing we did was found the Catholic Church, so we knew where to go on the Sunday. And so that's something I always did, always went to church on a Sunday. And we had a priest at St Philip's Grammar School who said, never be proud with God. Mm-hmm. So never get to the stage where you think, I have been a sinner, I can't possibly go into this church on Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. So whatever you went through, whatever you'd done in your early life, then Sunday morning was important.
I mean, that sounds as if, you know, things have developed in your life, and what started off as just you going to church seems that God has brought a reality into your life that you're able to look at things like that when maybe you couldn't have done many years ago. Well,
that's also experience, of course, is very, very important. I mean, the first time you're confronted with certain things, you're in a state of shock, mm-hmm. aren't you? And yet, after a little while, you come to terms with things, as you must do. You must do.
Yeah. What is the thing that you really remember out of all? Is there one memory, or are there many memories, but one particular that you remember out of all of your career that really comes out and you think, yeah, that was great?
I think probably the most important thing was the first time I worked at the London Palladium. I was very fortunate. In 1970, as a complete unknown, I was put in the show on the North Pier in Blackpool. and I couldn't believe my luck. Top of the bill was the Barron Knights, who were enormous. Peter Gordino closed the first half, and I did a comedy spot very, very early on in the first half. After 3 days, I was going so well that they moved me and put my spot in the second half immediately before the Barron Knights. I was also in a sketch and a first half, second half opening, you know, that sort of thing. Anyway, all sorts of people started coming up from London, and I got an amazing write-up in The Observer, for some reason. And towards the end of the show, they took me out of the show a week early, and they put me into the London Palladium with Engelbert Humperdinck. And the Sunday before we were due to open on the Monday, I turned up at the London Palladium, and there were all these photos all over the place, photos of me. I just couldn't get me breath. Couldn't believe it. That was fantastic. That was the
highlight. Highlight.
It was a terrifying first night, though. I walked on, and there was all sorts of people. There was Des O'Connor, Tom Jones, Raquel Welch in one row, about four, because all mates of Engelbert, obviously, you know. But that was a great experience.
But you're still enjoying it. I mean, maybe you're not playing to such big audiences these days, but obviously you're still enjoying yourself. I mean, look at that smile. I love that smile. You know, we're going to have to cut it down. And so,
you've got a name like McClean, you've got to be able to smile, haven't you?
But you're still enjoying life and still enjoying entertainment.
There's nothing better than standing on stage, telling gags, and getting waves of laughter coming up at you. Yeah. There's nothing worse than standing on stage telling gags and nothing happens. Then you really have got a problem. But no, it's great. And people say, you know, you get to an age where the thing that annoys you most about getting old is people say, well, when are you going to retire then? You know, and I'm not going to retire. I shall retire when they stop laughing.
Right.
And it's as easy as that. While they're laughing, I'll keep going.
Yeah, I interviewed Sid Little last year, and he said he said he's going to retire when the phone stops ringing. Yeah. So I mean, that's true. It seems to me that you guys just want to carry on because it's part of your life.
Well, a few years ago, I said to my wife, I said, about 10 years ago, I said, I don't know, I think I'm going to have to pack up. I said, you know, I just can't compete now because comedy has got so awful. The language, of course, is unbelievable. The subjects that people cover, laboratorial, even they talk about death, about disease, about people who are terminally ill and think it's funny. And I said, I'm going to have to pack up, I can't cope with this. But all of a sudden I started getting more work than ever, and people like me, and you mentioned Sid, Jimmy Cricket, Tom O'Connor, Bernie Clifton, all of the same generation. We're getting a lot of work from people who don't want their audiences to be embarrassed.
Yes. Yeah.
They want to hear clean comedy. They don't mind things a little bit cheeky, but they definitely don't want bad language. So many people are so offended by bad language, and of course the television companies take absolutely no notice. They just keep pouring it at you.
Many years presenting Good Morning Sunday.
Yeah, nearly 16 years.
Nearly 16 years. And what was your aim when you started? And do you think you got there, as you developed that programme, do you think you got to where you wanted to get to out of that programme?
Not necessarily. My aim, not just on the programme, but generally, was to prove that you can have religious belief and be funny. There are a lot of people who you know and I know who cannot mix comedy and faith and religion. Yes. They are known as po-faced Christians, and I think they do more harm to Christianity than anybody else, you know. Right. And it was my aim to prove to people that you could believe, you could lead a good life, and you could still have a real good laugh. Yeah. And I always think about Jesus. He's walking around the countryside with 12 blokes. You're not telling me they didn't spend most of the day laughing. Yes. They must have done. Yeah. Telling jokes, laughing, because that's what makes it all worthwhile, isn't it, really?
Yeah. What are your favourite memories? Because you did, you were in the studio many times, but you did a number of interviews and you went to various places. What's your favourite memory of those 16 years?
Well, we did go to all sorts of places. I interviewed royalty.